I Accuse My Parents. Uh, this is an old movie that got the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment, and I'm convinced that's the only reason anybody knows this movie exists, not unlike something like Starfighters. Uh, this is, as it sounds, it's about a son who is um, the framing device is that he's being charged with a murder, and he's in the courtroom, and they're asking him to testify, and he sort of dramatically says, "I accuse my parents," and it goes through his backstory of, his parents are admittedly not the best sort of people. They're kind of constantly fighting. His mom's a drunk, and his dad's just kind of a dick, it seems like. But they go through that at the very beginning. But other than that, the parents don't really show up a whole lot in this. It's mostly him, lying a lot. He lies a lot in this movie. It's like a thing where I guess he's gotten used to lying about the whereabouts of his parents, I guess. That's where they're going with it, is because he got addicted to lying or something. But yeah, he through a number of odd events winds up getting involved with a mob. He finds a love interest. There's a musical number, which, as I love it when musical numbers show up in bad movies like this, and this is a particularly memorable one. He winds up meeting a friendly cook and gets a job briefly flipping burgers, and it's sort of this really, it's kind of boring. It's a pretty boring movie to sit through, and the message isn't totally clear. Like, in the end, he basically kills a guy in self-defense, like this mob guy. And it's clear he could have just said it was self-defense. I mean, really, it's not like I hated this guy or anything. He was going to kill me. And that would have been fine. But instead, he goes through this whole thing about this is my parents' fault for convoluted reasons. And I think that's really the best summary of this movie, is convoluted reasons for doing something. I don't know. The riff is pretty good on this one. And it's a good example of that old style message movie. I mean, I actually I might like this movie a little better than Reefer Madness in that kind of style. But, yeah. There's not a whole lot else to say about it. The acting is very kind of wooden, like you would expect from this kind of movie. With the exception of the mom. The mom is played just delightfully as the drunk. Other than that, it's all kind of what you might expect. I mean, the movie I sort of immediately had to compare this to was Girl in Gold Boots, because it's similar in that there is, some casual person who makes a bunch of decisions that go downhill really fast. Girl in Gold Boots is less competently made than this, and that there's a lot of editorial mistakes and that sort of thing. But it's more entertaining that things actually happen, and there's enough badly done things that are amusing that it's easier to watch. But I Accuse My Parents is just kind of it's sort of one of those that you kind of sit through and it drolls along. The pacing isn't particularly good, and it's really hard to identify with this guy. Like, the idea, he's trying to win everyone to his side in this courtroom where he's talking about how horrible his parents were and everything, but really it comes down to him just lying all the time for no particular reason, gets him into all this mess. But yeah, basically he gets off the hook with it, and spoilers, I guess. Nobody needs to get a spoiler warning for this thing. It is it's just a boring movie. It's pretty badly made, but not any worse than any of those other sort of social hygiene-y sort of message movies of the time. I like the riff quite a bit. It really plays off of all that really well. There's not a whole lot else to say about it, really. It's a skippable movie, I think. It's certainly not the worst of what I'm seeing here. It's pretty middle of the road. I do kind of like watching these old style movies. They actually, because there were just so many movies like this, not many of them make this list. Because they're not particularly popular. The ones that are notable are the ones that have been dug up since, for one reason or another. The hammy acting, the hammy messages. This is if you want to watch a movie like this that's really enjoyable and silly, Reefer Madness probably is a better one, just because it's been sort of redone and re-edited in a way that's even more sort of interesting. But yeah, the riff of I Accuse My Parents is also a good way to go. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say on this. I still kind of, I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I still enjoy watching it, but it is, the movie itself is pretty slow and not particularly interesting.
Tea House of the August Moon.
The John Bradshaw story. They laughed when I accused my parents and I killed them. Let's see if they'll be laughing now.
Before we go any farther, I urge you once again to speak, if there is anything you can say in your own defense.
Sorry, I was looking at your mole, sir.
I like Jell-O.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, Your Honor,
But I'm Esther Roll.
but I accuse my parents.
We have a title! Yes. We have a title, yes!